static indoors, learn about the snowboard real quick, how to put the bindings on, how to figure out what's a good stance for starting snowboarding, and just some things that you can do inside to kind of prepare you to get out on the snow. Then we'll go out to the snow, we'll find a good flat area, and we'll progress up the hill, getting a little bit steeper and steeper before it's time to get on the lift. This is the Snowboard Jesus board, spread love like butter. This is a non-directional board. So a non-directional snowboard means that it's not stiffer on one side than on the other. It means it can go, either side can be the nose, essentially. Because of the graphic, if I was snowboarding, I'd probably put this as the nose and have my stance set in a certain way. That way that it's always facing this way with the lettering. But yeah, so a couple things. If I was to do a lesson indoor, if I was to do a first timer lesson, this is exactly how I would do a first timer lesson. Let's start by welcoming you in. We then go over boot size. Once we put the boots on, you obviously when you do put the boots on, they obviously need to be snug fit. And we just talk about the board, different parts of the snowboard. So we've always got the nose and a tail. In this case, this board is non-directional, so either one could be tip or tail. Then we've got the edges, usually a toe and a heel wall. These metal pieces right here, these are the edges, very sharp. I'm gonna be careful with those. This board in particular, it has a 3D base, so it's got soft edges. I don't know if you guys can see that or not in the camera. Then the board always has a base. This you always want to keep waxed. You always want to make sure that the pores fill up and that it stays super hydrated, just like us out there. But yeah, it's super important to wax your board every couple times. It just ensures that it's going to last longer and it's going to ride a lot better. You'll find a lot of boards that don't have wax on them or haven't gotten waxed. They'll tend to be a little stickier or a little slower on the snow. Another thing is you can really get into it if you're riding a lot is like different temperature waxes for different temps and days to make it even faster. So yeah, so you get the base. This is called the top sheet right here. It's our graphic. This is what you see mostly. And then right here, you can see where you put the bindings in. These are called inserts. So that's where you just screw the bindings in on both sides. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it as far as the board goes. Okay, so before you set up your board, your bindings on your board, you want to figure out the best stance. A lot of beginners, almost all beginners, I like to start with what's called a duck stance. That's where your feet are pointed outward just a little bit. You can see that, kind of like a duck, right? That's why we call it the duck stance. But essentially what this does, and a good thing to try at home, is it helps you squat more. It helps you keep your back straight, your knees bent, and it allows you to squat just like when you're riding. You're constantly riding, it's up and down, flexion, extension in the legs, always. And to kind of figure out what's best, just feel what's more comfortable. Move those feet around. Start at a 0-0, where those are straight on. See how low you can go. I can't go too low like that. But if I open up my stance a little bit in the duck stance, I'm able to go super low, keeping that back straight. And it doesn't feel like it's hurting the knees at all. So that's a really good way to kind of find your stance. I use a measuring tape sometimes, go heel to heel, just to see how far apart those bindings need to be. But you can always just move them in once you figure out that stance. Another thing with the stance and being duck is you don't want to be over duck. So for me personally, I like to ride at a 15, -15. What that does is that ensures that I'm using more of this front edge. See, I have more control over this whole edge here now that my feet are duck stance, versus if I'm to go here, it seems like I kind of only have I'm really only able to kind of control that part of the edge. So a little bit wider, and I just kind of feel around for where's a good spot. I have a really wide stance in comparison to a lot of people. I'm a little bit heavier, and this feels better on the knees for me. Another question people have is what's my stronger foot, or what foot do I have in front? I always like to put the stronger foot in the back. I would say 99% of people always put their stronger foot in the back. And a good way to tell this is a couple of different things. One, you and a loved one could stand together, or have your loved one stand there, hands behind the back, feet together, and you just give them a little tap on the back to fall forward. Whatever foot comes down first, that tends to be the more dominant foot. That'll tend to be the foot that's in the back. Another thing I tell people is what foot you kick the ball with, right? I can always kick a ball with my right foot a lot harder. That's my stronger foot, so I'll put the other foot in the front. There are cases where some people want to have the stronger foot in the front, and that might be more comfortable for them. That's okay too. This is just a way to kind of figure it out, kind of say like what the rules are, I guess. But yeah, so stronger foot in front, my left foot, I want the spread love like butter right there. Now we're gonna put our bindings in. Almost all bindings have the same kind of characteristics. They all tend to have similar things, unless it's step in or channel, something a little bit different, a little bit novel. But for the most part, they're all the same. They all come with a toe strap, a heel strap, a high back. They've got ourselves a base plate. These base plates go in the center usually. You fix them up with, there's little tiny numbers on there, and you can figure out exactly what your stance is that you're comfortable with. You fit it into the teeth, and you screw it down. Another good little trick is sometimes if your heel edge, you feel like you're leaning too much on a heel edge. Most of these high backs come with something to where you can pop it up, pull it down, and then make it a little bit more of an angle. So in that way it makes it a little easier to engage that heel edge. So definitely play around with those. Yeah. All right, so once you're ready to go ahead and put your bindings on, there's a couple things that you want to make sure of. One thing for sure that you want to make sure of is the angle that you're going to be putting your feet at. Me personally, I don't go past a negative 15, so you're able to see exactly what the angle numbers are on almost all bindings. They'll have a little tiny lettering showcasing exactly what the angle is. So for me, I do the duck. I'm at about a 15, negative 15. As you slowly bring it in, you're like 12, negative 12, you know, 6, negative 6 or whatever. And then when they're straight on, dead center, that's 0, 0. So somewhere in here is where I would recommend playing with your stance. Okay, so what I do, I got a 15, negative 15. I sit dead center, which means that both of my bindings will go in an equal position on those inserts in order to be dead center in the board. That way I have just as much nose as I do tail. So with that being said, I'll find a 15, negative 15 on here. I've got a nice little mark that indicates the arrow showing, pointing at that angle. So there's 15. So now if I come over here, so if you guys can see the little lettering showing the 15. So that's a 15-degree angle. And I just line it up with those circles right there, the inserts. I'm going pretty wide on that one. So if I look, I'm going to come in one. Come in one right there. And then I just screw it on. Nice and easy. I don't want to apply too much pressure. Once those are in there, like I said, don't want to apply too much pressure. Just nice and easy. Try to lock it in so it's not moving around too much. All right, once your bindings are on, I always like to do those stand tests. Just kind of stand in there, just feel it. Make sure that it's at a good angle for me. Make sure I can bend those knees. Doesn't feel too bad. Doesn't feel like it's too wide. I also don't have snowboard boots on, so snowboarding boots will make me a little bit taller as well. But that's okay for this. Just kind of showing you guys what's up. When you guys do this in your house and you do some static indoor stuff, I really recommend doing it with the boots on. Plus you get into like the hype of it, you know, and like getting ready to ride. All right, once our board has its bindings on and we're ready to rock and roll, before you guys go out on the hill, I recommend strapping in inside. I recommend having your snowboard boots on too, not your Crocs. But what you're gonna wanna do is just strap in, get used to it. Sometimes you guys are gonna be starting to strap in and you're gonna realize, oh, I need to adjust this strap. Makes it easier when you're indoors. Wow, that fits the Croc. That is funny. I'm able to get some tightness out of there, so that probably wouldn't work for my snowboard boot. All right, let's get this other foot strapped in. All right, so once you're strapped in, it's There's a few different board performances that your board can make that we're going to be doing out on the hill that I think will be super important to learn indoors first. First one's going to be a tilt. It's where my knees are bent, my torso is upright. If I was snowboarding, I'm looking where I'm going, but I'm able to lift up my toes just a little bit, just kind of balance on those heels. Another thing you can do is press against those high backs a little bit. Boom. And then you're going to want to practice a tilt on the other side. So that's going to be balancing on those toes. It's kind of lifting up a little bit, balancing on the toes, belly out, torso upright, knees are bent a little bit. I'm just applying a little bit of pressure just to feel the tilt on the board indoors. The next move that your board can make is what's called a twist, torsional flex. That's how we're learning to turn, that's how we're switching edges, all sorts of stuff like that on the hill. What essentially is happening is we're twisting the board. If you can see, this part of my board has not left the ground. Yeah, this part of the board has. So when I'm out there snowboarding, if I wanted to make a turn, I'd lift up on one toe while the other toe's pressed down. And that's gonna make drag back here on this part of the board and less drag up here. So what that's gonna do is engage this edge, and then I'm gonna make a turn. So torsional flex, one toe up, other toe down. This you can do in between turns. So if I'm gonna put this together and make a turn, what I will do is I will tilt the board, traverse across the hill, and then I'll make that twist, the torsional flex, and then I'll tilt again onto the new edge. Just like that. That's literally a turn outside. But a couple things that you can do indoors is just messing with these edges, feeling these board performances, and just kind of hopping around, getting used to being strapped into your board. This kind of stuff all definitely helps out on the hill. Because the more control you have over your board in here, the more you're going to have out there on the hill. A couple tips when riding out there is you always want to keep your torso upright. So I'm always keeping my back upright, my knees are bent. When you're going to a heel side edge, a good little tip when you're lifting up on those toes is to sit back in your chair a little bit. That ensures that my center of mass is over this heel edge. When I do it to the toes, just the opposite. What I'll do is I'll lean forward, stick the belly out, torso upright, lifting up on those heels. Sometimes it'll help to hold on to something or grab something too. If you're indoors, just use something to kind of hold yourself there. Work on staying balanced. When you guys start to do traversing from one side of the hill to the other, it's always important to be able to shift your weight over whatever direction you want to go. So if I wanted to go to the right on my heel side edge, I get my weight over that right foot. I'm lifting up just a little bit, pushing down just a little bit, just the opposite. I hope you guys have enjoyed this so far. If there's any comments, questions, concerns, or anything you think that we could do to make this video a little bit better, please let us know in the comment section below.